Welcome back, my friends and fellow nerds, to Theory Hammer. I'm your insufferable host, the legendary Kevbot, and in today's episode, we're going to take a look at the Deathwing Knights. A little unit breakdown for them, because, spoiler alert, this unit is crazy. So Thunderhammer, that like, subscribe, and bell icon, leave a comment, check out our other videos, and when I say our, I mean me, I do everything. Now, if you've been here before, then you kind of know the format of these unit breakdowns. I go over the datasheet, I go over its durability, its output, usually, and then some of its combos. So, yeah, when it comes to the Space Marine things, I'm not going to mention everything. I can't list everything. I don't actually like really doing Space Marine breakdowns because there's so many options to consider. The outlines are usually gigantic, there's usually a lot more screenshots required, the editing takes longer, it's just generally a harder video to make, and there's just a whole lot of stuff, and I'm kind of worried that I'm going to miss things, so they're just kind of hard to make. This is also part of why I never made a Space Marine Tactica. By the time I got finished covering everything, things will have gotten changed. So all this to say, if there's a combo that's cool that we miss here, leave a comment. Generally though, this unit is so insane that the detachment is kind of secondary. Now, I've already wasted a little bit too much time, so I just want to jump into it. I want to take a look at their datasheet, and here is the datasheet. They move 5. They're toughness 5. They've got a 2-up save and a 4-up invuln, like all Terminators, 4 wounds, leadership 6, and an OC of 1. So, kind of average, except, whoa, that's 4 wounds on a Terminator, so I can get behind 4 wound Terminators just by themselves, you know? They didn't have melee weapons, and it says here that they have 4 attacks apiece each, hitting on 2s at strength 6, AP 2, and flat 2, but with anti-monster 4+, and with anti-vehicle 4+. That's really, really good. They'll, literally never not be wounding on 4s or worse. Anything past toughness 6 is usually a vehicle or a monster or something. Not everything, but 95% of things. The only thing that I can think of that are not is Obliterators, Centurions, and Tyrant Guard, which are Tyrant Guard or toughness 8 infantry somehow. But there's very few things like that, so most things are going to be vehicles or monsters. And you get 4 attacks each with anti-good stuff 4+, and they hit on 2s. Excuse me? 16 attacks is going to be about 14 hits. It's 13.5 off the top of my head. And that's against basically anything. That's going to be 7 wounds. So at flat 2 damage with AP2, it's not bad. But then we have the Sergeant. And the Sergeant guy, he's got 5 attacks, also hitting on 2s, at strength 6, AP2, flat 2, with sustained 1, and dev wounds. He's literally just an actual character leading the unit at that point with that weapon profile, and he alone will almost always cause 2 or more damage, probably closer to 3. But since he has devs and sustained on 2s to hit, then you average 5 hits, and that's an 83% chance to roll a dev wound, plus any normal wounds that you get. So, pretty good unit in combat. Not insane, but good for sure. And then we also have our abilities, which we have a teleport homer, but no one fucking cares about that. But what you definitely do care about is the inner circle, which makes these guys -1 damage, just all the time. Oh, and there's also an upgrade, which is free because 10th edition, that gives them a once per game 4+ Fiona Pain against mortal wounds. What? Sure, why not? Who wrote this? Clearly someone who didn't actually put them on the table to test them, because what the fuck? And they're only 250 points, so you are paying a lot for them. And if you compare that to my last Terminator breakdown, which was the World Eater Terminators, which was it was published just before everyone got all their points changed because Terminators got lowered in points. Anyway, 180 points for 5 Terminators normally. This unit is 250 for 5 Terminators, so that's the new number for this unit. And I really don't know. I guess Wardens would be 50 points each, right? So okay, they're a good comparison because they're toughness 6, they're -1 to be wounded, and they can get a 4-up Field of Pain just straight up, and they're a little faster. They have a higher strength with more attacks in combat, but they aren't 4 wounds, although they probably should be, to be totally honest. Custodians should probably have more wounds. But anyway, they aren't -1 damage, and they don't have anti-vehicle or anti-monster 4+. They don't have access to Armor of Contempt. Wardens are impossible to kill one time. This unit of Terminators, this Deathwing Knight unit, is impossible to kill all the time. But just how impossible? Well, this impossible. We're going to give them Iron Resolve from the First Company Task Force in addition to Armor of Contempt. So that's what we're going to do, but we could also give them Legendary Fortitude, which makes them another -1 damage. I'm not going to, because that's hilariously over the top, but you can. And I'll just say, it takes like 60 wounds from a 3 damage weapon in combat to destroy them at that point. So basically just insert anything that's 3 damage in combat, it takes 60 or more of those and you don't have it. And because of that, we're going to do -1 damage normally and just see how much punishment they can just take. Now, Iron Resolve is going to give them a 5-up Feel No Pain in addition to all this nonsense. So here's what we got. We are going to start up as we usually do with the Trusty Bolter, trusty being in quotes here. It takes, these are 5-man units of Terminators. It takes 810 shots to destroy this unit, dude. Like, the math's on screen. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. And if you guys see anything wrong with the math, which there could possibly be, I have to do all these myself. Sometimes I miss things or forget to add something in here, there, or the other place. Just let me know down below. I do sometimes realize it, like, while I'm editing. I'm like, oh, that's wrong. But, so yeah, just let me know. Now, if we want to shoot las cannons at these guys, it's going to take 68 las cannon shots to kill 5 Terminators. You hit with the 45, you wound with 30, I get a 3-up save because I'm in cover with Armor of Contempt. And then the Feel No Pain stuff kind of gets complicated here, but because we have a 5-up Feel No Pain, we basically have 6 wounds on each guy. We're also -1 damage, and the average on a las cannon is 5.5 damage. -1 damage means it's going to be 4.5 damage. With the Feel No Pain, mathematically, we still have 1.5 wounds left, and therefore we're going to be able to absorb a second las cannon hit. At the end of the day, once you do all the math, each model ends up taking about 9 damage, absorbing 9 damage. So that's outrageous. If you're trying to hit them with meltaguns, it does take less. It only takes 45. You hit with 30, because you're hitting on 3s most likely. You wound on 3s, so you're wounding with 20. I do have to go to my invuln at that point, so it's going to be a 4-up save. Again, the Feel No Pain stuff is kind of complicated. It's a little weird. The average melta shot is going to be 5.5 damage. We reduce that to 4.5. We then take Feel No Pain, resulting in you get to absorb a second hit, basically. So 9 damage to each model. Then they roll their Feel No Pain with the -1 damage. Yeah, that's what you get with meltaguns. You need 45 of them. If you're shooting me with plasma guns, it takes over 200. It takes 202 because you get 135 hits. 90 wounds. I get a 3-up save because of Armor of Contempt and I'm in cover. It's 30 that go through. That'll do it though. They're only 1 damage, so it does 20 wounds to the unit after I make my Feel No Pain rolls. You do 20 wounds, which is how many you need to destroy the units, which is 40 each guy there. So that's it, pretty dumb, because that's 10 units of Hellblasters shooting, all within rapid fire range, right? With autocannons, you need 200 shots still. You still need 200 shots. Like, you literally need like 20 Predators to destroy a 5-man Terminator squad, because you're going to get 135 hits, 90 wounds. You get a 2-up save because you're in cover. If you really need it, you can get Armor of Contempt if it's something like the Predators that make things +1 AP that shoot at you. So yeah, it doesn't matter. You're getting a 2-up save if you're in cover. They become 2 damage. So each guy's absorbing 3 hits because they have basically 6 wounds. Because if you roll 6 dice, 2 of them will be 5s. And then that's 4 wounds to each guy. So yeah, it takes 200 autocannon shots to do it. And now, using an example that I don't think I've ever put into one of these videos would be like an ion cannon with every possible buff on it. So yeah, you still need 45 shots because you're going to get 30 hits. You're going to get 20 wounds because you're wounding on 3s. You're hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. I have a 4-up save, so I fail half of them. And then because of the Feel No Pain, because they become 3 damage, each guy takes 2. So you need 10 of them to go through to kill 5 guys. It's just nuts, guys. This unit, oh, by the way, you only have 18 shots with 3 Riptides. You would need to shoot them 3 turns in a row at the same unit to destroy it, mathematically here. That's how durable this unit of 5 Terminators is. Like, what? Now, of course, because we have the 5-up Feel No Pain on it, that's going a long way here. You can only have that once a game, and you can only have that in the First Company Task Force. So, most of the time you're just going to be -1 damage. So still, like, when it takes 45 ion cannon shots, it still takes more than 18 to destroy a 5-man Terminator squad. It's just ridiculous. They're super duper durable. Because, like, off the top of my head, each guy needs to take 2, which means that you need to get 4 wounds on that single guy, which means you needed to get 6 shots. Yeah, like, a Riptide kills 1 of them. So that's pretty nutty. This is actually a crazy, crazy unit in terms of durability. I mean, it takes 810 bolter shots, dude. Now imagine we're playing Space Marine 2, and we need 810 bolter shots to destroy something. Now, I guess that is probably a bad comparison, though, because, like, things literally do. But fine. So basically, trying to destroy one of these units is equivalent to trying to destroy a fucking Hellbrute in Space Marine 2 with a bolt gun. So there's an analogy for you, at least, I suppose. Like, it takes 67 or 68 las cannon shots, or whatever the fuck it was, to destroy 5 Terminators. It takes 200 plasma gun shots. What is happening right now? So, durability is a check. Style, I mean, look at them. That's a check. What's their damage like, though? Well, let's take a look at their damage. But we're going to give them something cool. We're going to give them Honor the Chapter, which will give them +1 AP. And Lance, but +1 AP is the more important one. With the Mace, against the Oath of the Moment target, if we're wounding on 4s, we're going to, against like a 4-up invuln, we're only going to do about 8 damage. So this will be something like Riptide, Votan Terminators, which you'll get 4 of them in that case. Custodes, you'll get 2 of them in that case. Something like a Land Raider would come into this as well, because we're anti-monster and anti-vehicle 4-up, so we treat them the same. But 2 to 4 models otherwise. If we're wounding on 4s against some sort of 5-up save, because we are AP3 right now, so against something like a Plague Burst Crawler or Demon Engines of any kind, you do about 10 damage. If you're hitting a unit, you get about 2 to 5 models, depending on if they have 3 or 2 wounds, because these are flat 2 damage. So something like Aggressors that are 3 wounds, you're only going to be getting about 2 of them there. If you're wounding on 4s against a 6-up save of some kind, so, I don't know, a Penitent Engine or like a Hammerhead, Imperial Knights, you know, something along those lines in combat, you do about 13 damage to them. Or you destroy about 3 to 6 models, depending on what kind of unit that may be. If you're wounding on 3s against something, so we are +1 to wound possibly sometimes, but when we're wounding on 3s against a 4-up invuln, you do about 10 damage to something. So maybe like regular battle suits with a 4-up invuln, like the Sunforge guys. If we're hitting a unit, we're going to destroy 2 to 5 models. You're looking at like 2 Terminators there. If it's like Purifiers from Grey Knights with Armor of Contempt, you're getting about 5 there. If you're wounding on 3s against a 5-up save of some kind, so regular Marines, I guess, with Armor of Contempt, you do about 13 damage to a single unit, or you'll destroy about 3 to 7 models. Only 3 if they have 3 wounds apiece, but up to 7 if they have 2 wounds apiece. If you're wounding on 3s against a 6-up, you're looking at about 17 damage, so anything that's toughness 5 with a 2-up save, you know, you'll destroy 4 to 9 models as well, and it kind of just depends on whether they have 2 or 3 wounds there. If you're wounding on 2s against a 4-up invuln of some kind, or just a 4-up something, somehow they have a 4-up save, you know, Armor of Contempt, plus they have a 2-up save, some way they have a 4-up save, you do about 13 damage, or you destroy 3 to 6 models. So Sisters with an Imagifier is a terrible example, but you destroy about 6 in that example. Or if they have a 2 wounds there, if you're hitting something like a squad of Legionaries that has Abaddon attached to them, they're 2 wounds there, you will destroy about 6 models. If you're winning on 2s against a 5-up save of some kind, like an invuln, you do about 17 damage or destroy 4 to 8 models. If it's AdMech Infantry, you're looking at 8. And then if you're wounding on 2s against a 6-up save, you're looking at like 20 damage, but there's like nothing in the game that is a single vehicle at that point, or a monster. Otherwise, though, you're doing about 5 to 10 models destroyed. And this is something with toughness 3 that has like a 6-up save, so there's invuln, so like Sisters with no Imagifier, or something with a toughness of 3 that has a 3-up save, so that they'll just naturally go to a 6-up against AP3. Now I want to highlight the damage that these guys do to vehicles. So basically anything in that 4+ to wound range, and there's also a lot of strats from a lot of different detachments that can give us +1 to wound, even though we can factor that in sometimes here. So, you know, times when you would normally be wounding on 4s, you're now wounding on 3s, so that's still included in here. Without that, though, you know, against the most common tanks, you're looking at about 10 damage on average, and we didn't use the Flail yet. This was only 4 of the 5 models swinging, and the Flail has dev wounds. Now, I'm not going to be doing wounding on 6s for the flail. I do want to just get through this. So just pretend that that's +1 to wound through like the 5 different ways that you can get it. So this is what we are looking at with our flail. If you're wounding on 5s against a 4-up invuln, probably, because you're AP3, like a Land Raider in this case with Armor of Contempt, you're going to still do 3 damage to it. And that puts us up to 11 damage against that Land Raider. If we're wounding on 5s against some sort of 5-up save, so like a Monolith, can't think of a unit though, you'll do about 3 damage to that thing. So about the same as, above. Pretty similar math there. One's rounding up, one's rounding down. Now, if you're wounding on 5s against a 6-up save, you're looking at about 3 or 4 damage. So this would be like an Imperial Knight. So against an Imperial Knight, we're actually up to 16 damage on it. If we're wounding on 4s against a 4-up invuln, so, something like Angron, I guess, because we do +1 to wound him with a strength 6 weapon, we do about 4 damage to him. If it's some sort of unit somehow, you do 1 to 2 models destroyed. If you're wounding on 4s against a 5-up save, you're looking at about 4 or 5 damage or 1 to 2 models destroyed. So if it's like Mega Knobs or something, because they have a 2-up save, they're AP3, or they have a 5-up invuln just from the WOG, they'll destroy about 1 with the flail alone. If you're wounding on 4s against a 6-up save or a 6-up invuln, in this case, so like aggressors without Armor of Contempt, that's probably a bad example, but 5 damage or 2 to 3 models destroyed. If you're hitting aggressors that are 3 wounds, you're probably going to destroy 2 of them. If you're wounding on 3s against a 4-up save or a 4-up invuln, I keep saying a save, but I probably mean invuln, same deal there. It's going to be about 5 damage or 1 to 2 models destroyed. So Terminators, you kill 1. Battlesuits, you probably kill 1 there. Purifiers with Armor of Contempt, you get like 2 of them there. If you're wounding on 3s against some sort of 5-up invuln, you do about 6 damage or 1 to 3 models destroyed. So like Purifiers without Armor of Contempt, I guess. If you're wounding on 3s against a 6-up, so like regular Marines, you do about 7 damage or destroy about 3 models there. Now, if you're wounding on 2s, so if you're in the +1 to wound range, you can kind of consider that here as well. So some of these things might shift downward, if that makes sense. So 2s to wound against a 4-up invuln, so something like a Magifier with Sisters, or Grey Knights with Armor Contempt, something like that. You do about 6 damage or destroy 1 to 3 models, wound depending. If you're wounding on 2s against a 5-up invuln, you do about 7 damage or destroy 2 to 4 models, so like Admech Infantry, I guess, they have a 5-up invuln base. You destroy about 4 of them. If you're hitting something like an 8-bound unit and you're +1 to wounds, you're wounding them on 2s, you destroy about 2 of them there. If you're wounding on 2s against a 6-up invuln, you do about 8 damage or destroy, same deal, about 2 to 4 models. So that'd be like a Sisters unit with no character, just any Marine unit that's +1 to wound against or something like that don't have Armor of Contempt. Destroy about 4 models there. So their damage is not crazy, but not terrible. They definitely more shine against monsters and vehicles, and I'll take that. Like, for their durability, their damage is completely fine for me. One thing that I'll talk about that I don't normally talk about in these unit breakdowns is a way to kind of try to avoid these things. If they're not playing an Inner Circle task force where they can deep strike them within 3 inches of you, your best bet, because they're going to probably rapid ingress them somewhere, your best bet is to just move block them. You're just going to want to screen them as best as you can, and just move block them, because they are pretty slow. They only move 5 inches. They don't move as quickly as other units, and they don't really have access to advance and charge unless they're playing in a Gladius, which we'll get to. But otherwise, they are kind of slow, and because they're a 5-man unit, they're a little bit easier to block off sometimes. So my recommendation if you're dealing with 3 units of these things is to try to just screen as best you can, because you're not going to want to deal with this unit. You're not going to want to deal with one of them, let alone 2 or 3, plus other stuff. You could also tie them up in combat with a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, if you had, a blob of 20 guardsmen, it's going to take them a couple of turns to churn through that. So you can also bog them down. They are a little expensive, and so you can kind of throw something in their way that's less expensive and just be like, listen, you can move this far, and then you can charge me, and that's it. You can't consolidate because there's no point nearby, or whatever the case may be. So any big, slow units like that, you can either screen them or just feed stuff to them that they don't necessarily have the capacity to fully destroy, just to keep them in combat a little bit longer. This won't always work, because if they are in the Gladius, they could have access to fallback and charge and shoot, not that they have guns, but they have access to that as well, so they're hard to pin down sometimes, but you're just going to want to screen them out. Let's now at least just touch on some of the strats that they do like to make use of. And so our first attachment here would be the First Company Task Force. Here we have the Orbital Teleportarium, which allows me to go back into reserve at the end of my opponent's turn, And then we also have that legendary Fortitude for an additional -1 damage, only in combat though. Pretty good, not crazy, both of them are pretty useful, but total, I'm not sure it's the best one for them. This is also the detachment that gives you Iron Resolve. Now the next detachment that we have that we could look into is the Gladius Strike Force. This gives us access to Advance and Charge. It's going to be one of the main things that we use from the detachment itself. For our stratagems, we have Only in Death Does Duty End, which is a 2 CP fight on death automatically. That's very, very nice. We then have Honor the Chapter, which is what we were using with our math, which is +1 to wound if you've charged Lance, and +1 AP if you're in the Assault Doctrine, which you should be because this unit wants to get into combat, gives them Advance and Charge, and all that. So the main thing here, though, is that it gives them +1 AP. That's really what they're looking for. And then you also have access to Squad Tactics, which gives them a reactive move of D6 or just flat 6 if they're in the Tactical Doctrine. Now there's a couple more. There's the Unforgiven Task Force. This is actually right out of the Dark Angels Codex. I'll just call it a Codex. So all this does is it makes their OC 1 instead of 0 when they're battle shocked. And then in your command phase, you can pick a unit from your army, and they just get +1 to their OC. Now for some actual enhancements that do stuff, you have Unforgiven Fury, which gives them lethal hits in combat, and that's nice on their weapon because they have lethals now. And then if you have access to Oath of the Moment on that unit that you're attacking, now you're rerolling to hit and getting more lethals. And then the other one that's pretty good in here is Unbreakable Lines. -1 to be wounded, but it's only in the charge phase, so it only happens when you're in combat. The effects of it only last while you're in combat. The last one that we have, the last detachment that we have, is the Inner Circle Task Force. And first off, this is just a good detachment. It gives them +1 to wound if they go after like a vowed objective marker, and your vowed objective marker can either be ones that you control or ones that your opponents control. It's either one you control or like all the ones your opponents control. And so they can be +1 to wound against a whole lot of targets. This then gives them access to Unmatched Fortitude, which is -1 to be wounded. Ooh, that makes them really, really tough now. I don't even feel like doing the math on that. They also have access to a 3-inch Deep Strike. They have access to a Fight on Death stratagem. It's only on a 4-up though, but you add 1 if they're on their vowed objective. And they can reroll wounds if they're on the vowed objective with a different strat. So that's really, really good. That's +1 to wound and rerolls to wound. They will destroy their target at that point, but like, they will lose out on the +1 AP. But between the Gladius and the Inner Circle Task Force, I think those are going to be your top picks for these guys. I could see you running them in a First Company Task Force or whatever it was as well, just to get that 5-up Feeling of Pain off and just, you know, have access to some stuff like rerolls to wound from the detachment roll and some other cool things like that. But I would definitely go with the Inner Circle or the Gladius, most likely. And then you do have some other strats from other detachments, like some fallbacks and charge stuff, some other reactive moves, just things that you can do, but not detachments that you would really want to take them in. So, in conclusion, this unit is disgusting, completely 100% worth its points still. It literally laughs at pretty much anything that comes its way, without strats. And trying to deal with like 2 or 3 units of these is miserable. I encourage you to try it. Getting through one of them takes like most of the firepower that you have and then some combat sometimes, and they just become hard to ignore when they can deep strike within 3 inches, right onto a point, and then you have like 2 or 3 units of them in your army to start. I think that they're just a stellar unit. They are effective against any target, and they're just way too difficult to destroy. There's 5 guys in the unit. It takes 68 las cannons or whatever. And then you add in strats, and they just become a force of their own sometimes. Like +1 to wound, reroll potentials, reactive moves. It's a deep strike unit to begin with. You could be deep striking it within 3, like I said. You have more +1 to wound strats with extra AP, and so on and so on and so on between these different detachments. Like, Space Marines have way too many units and combos and just stuff going on. So I'm sure I missed something here, but I do want to know what you guys think about this unit and its combos. Like, what have you been doing with these guys? I want to know down below, so thunderhammer that like and subscribe button, hit the bell icon, let me know what you think of these videos. Do you like them? And of course, check out our other videos that I've made, and then check out our second channel as well. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. This unit is absolutely insane. They're crazy, crazy durable. They'll just do whatever you want them to do. And so that's going to do it. You guys rock, so theory hard, and I'll see you guys back at the lab.